Hey everybody, thank you for watching our first episode of
I only asked because
a new segment that we're starting here on the channel. Pretty excited about it. And we're going to let Dr. E go ahead and give our first topic.
Thank you. So, our first topic for the day is, have we given up totally on the English language? I only ask because when I watch the news and I read newspapers and I'm in conversation, like, what are we doing? Can we have some subject-verb agreement at any time? I read an article this morning about Meghan Markle's dress. It was slitted. No, it was slit. What are you talking about? that drives me insane. It really does.
Well, I'll tell you this. The English language has, if you think about it, it's never really been something that's very proper. Even going back to when it was first created. That's why Spanish and Latin and French and all those languages are, you can kind of see how they come from each other and how they kind of have similarities. And then that's why it's the hardest language to learn for every other country because
it's irregular or
exactly.
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. And we're human, so we make mistakes. I totally get that. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. On the other hand, have you ever seen me try to catch a football, just for example? Have you ever seen me try to do that?
Maybe once or twice.
Did I catch it?
Nope.
I did not. I completely missed it, right? However, I don't get paid to catch footballs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you're a wide receiver for, say, the Chicago Bears and you can't ever catch anybody's throw, that's a problem. Do you understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's why I said we've got news writers and we've got teachers and we've got news commentators and we've got all these other people who get paid to say it right and spell it right and write it right. And it's like nobody cares. It's driving me nuts.
Well, I don't know. I feel like as a millennial for me, the English language has just always been, it's what I know, but it's also been fun because there are a lot of ways I know a lot of Spanish speaking people that I work around or work with and they say, how do you translate this to Spanish? And I tell them it's really hard to do. And that's what kind of makes it fun, I think. I think the English language is the most fun language, and that's probably why so many other countries try to speak it, just because, first of all, we're the biggest economy in the world, but also it's fun. Most people can kind of translate with English, and I think a lot of that has to do with today's social media, just how much we consume, how much that we put into the internet space. So they want to understand us, they want to be cool, they want to learn what we're saying and things of that nature, and even though it's very, as we say, irregular, it's its own. And I think that's one thing that I appreciate about the English language, even if we can't use it as it was originally intended.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all those comments. And I'm not out here expecting everybody to be like thou and tis and all this other stuff. Like, please don't mistake that. But one of the things you said really stuck out for me, and that is that the English language is kind of cool, and I agree with you 100%. What troubles me is that apparently what's also cool is not giving a good gosh darn about how we use the English language.
Yeah.
And, maybe it's me, maybe I need to see somebody about this, and then maybe we can come up with a new affliction. I'm not the only person because I talk to other people and we feel kind of the same way. But like you mentioned social media, I would like to get a good chuckle with everybody else. I can't even freaking concentrate because people are not using the right tense for their doggone verbs. It's ridiculous. It's like an epidemic.
Well, I wonder, now that you say that, I'm wondering if Chinese or Spanish or Italian or French, whatever, if they use their languages and use like the wrong verb tense and all of that as much as we do. I think definitely down here in the South, you see it a lot more often just because, I don't know why, but I will say that I feel like other countries have it just as badly as we do, but I wouldn't know because I don't understand the languages or the tenses or any of that. I remember taking Spanish class when I'd use the wrong tense, and you get caught real quick doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, probably in a English class in America, the English teacher will hear certain verb tenses and be like, whatever. So, I don't know. But that is an interesting topic to start with because that is something I feel a lot of people probably think about, but they never really think about it, you know?
I feel like it might be a little divisive, even because, again, like I said, I know, say, for example, I don't know, college professors or people who like to read a lot, like I like to read a lot, and so I'm more exposed, I think, to the written word, written in the right way.
Yeah.
But if I'm being honest, maybe I'm also hating, right? Because I've been around long enough to remember when, like you were saying about Spanish, that happened to me in Spanish and English. Like in English class, you could not write on your paper, what do you say? They all went to where the other people were at. Like you know, stuff like that. Like you can't, and now you'll be in an academic setting, and I promise you, a teacher will say, well, where's your book at? Excuse you? Like if I had to, you know what I'm trying to say? Like at least pull it together. Like I said, nobody's perfect, but I have worked with people who will keep saying, you know, certain things. It's kind of, you know, and I'm not going to bust you out. So I'll take you to the side and like, hey, did you know you're supposed to be saying, one of them, I think we had went. Like, do you know that it's really we had gone or we went? Yeah. Like if you're married to the word went, just, you know what I mean? And apparently I've hurt people's feelings. I've ticked people off. And it's just, I feel like it's an affliction that is growing. And I think just, you know, I feel like as a society, we've kind of dumbed ourselves down. Maybe that's part of my frustration. I don't know. But it kind of needs to stop. Like we either need to say, hey, we don't care. There's no such thing as a proper verb tense or anything like that. Plural, singular, that's off the table. And give those of us who actually use those things a chance to get used to it.
Yeah. Right?
And if we are not going to do that, then I feel like we need to get back to taking some pride in the way we communicate. Because I can't wait to get back on social media so I can kiki and hee-ha and everything too without having to feel like I have to correct everybody's freaking language. By then the joke is old.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it kind of reminds me of back when I was in school, and of course this was in Chicago, but we had to learn how to write cursive. And I don't know many people these days that could even write their name in cursive, and that's something that kind of going back to the dumbing down of society, it's crazy when you think about it because so many people, now I've seen some chicken scratch that I can't read in cursive, but at least it was in cursive. At least you can, it's kind of like having, you know, being bilingual. I can write in cursive or I can write in print. But now it's just, people can barely write in print. They can barely spell the words correctly. So, I mean, what do you think about that? I guess, as an academic yourself, just where do you think we're headed when it comes to, I guess, just keeping up with China, even keeping up with India, these countries that are, you know, more technologically advanced in terms of their workforce? How are we going to compete with them in 10, 15 years?
Well, I think it's all related actually, and I didn't know how far, you know, because I know I was kind of venting. I wasn't sure how far out you wanted to zoom, but what I will say is, you know, I feel like when you talk about the language and you talk about academia, you talk about reading or learning, whatever it is, I feel like there's a divide that's being made and it's intentional. And I remember hearing, I think when my youngest child was still in school, that, oh, we're not going to keep teaching cursive writing. Why would you stop doing that? I bet you all the boarding schools and all the college preps where, you know, all the moneyed people are sending their kids, I bet you they're still learning cursive in those places. So I think that, I don't know if they're speaking proper English because I don't really know any personally. I just hope they're not some of the journalists that I mentioned earlier, because epic fail. But, what I'm saying is, to me, this is by design. And I feel like it's a mistake because you really don't know which way the population is going to turn. And so to try and separate people based on what they know and what they've learned, I feel like could come back to bite us. I know I talk to people all the time about post-secondary education, right? And the first thing people want to say is, well, college is not for everybody. Well, define college. I never said Harvard. I might be talking about a technology school. But the more you can learn after you've graduated high school, the more nimble you'll be depending on what happens with the economy. And that's just a fact. So, if I own a manufacturing company and I don't have enough people to make, widgets for me or whatever, then of course I'm going to look to that segment of the society and, tell them on the hush hush, hey, I don't really think you need a bachelor's degree. Why don't you just go ahead and learn how to make these widgets for me so I can keep making my billions or whatever? I think that's kind of selfish, honestly. Yeah. And I think that too is going to come back and bite us. And then I guess the last thing I'll say about that is, I remember, you mentioned Chicago. I remember when there was a time where the trade unions only wanted to have certain apprentices that looked like them. Mm-hmm. And that went on for decades. Yeah. And what that did was push out a lot of people who, did work with their hands and everything and could have been making amazing money, but they weren't able to do that because they weren't able to apprentice because the trade unions were not having them. Yeah. Well, fast forward to, I say, the 2020s, for example. People are out with big old sticks, beating bushes and everything, trying to get people. They don't care what you look like. They don't care if you're male or female. They don't care your ethnicity. They need workers to come through these apprenticeship programs. Who would have thought that? Right. So I feel like, instead of always being selfish and being like, me, what's in it for me? I think we really need to embrace all of us as we, not just we're we because my parents were millionaires or we're we because we own this company or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think it's a mistake. I think it's going to come back to bite us as a society.
Yeah. And I'm glad you touched on that because it's so much bigger than that, because it's not even just when it comes to the workforce, but just, I think the world in general, even as countries see other countries, but even at home, how certain people see other people. And I'm thinking about the Trump tariffs, and I'm not going off topic here, but it's all related. People are like, we don't need to do this with China. We can do everything at home. But if China doesn't want to do business with us, the goods and services that we're importing over there or exporting over there now, there's a market for that. That is creating jobs. And people want to act like, same thing with Mexico, that we don't need these countries. We can do everything ourselves. That's kind of the reason that all of these trade agreements and these ports and all these things have been created, is because we do need each other. And it's the same thing at home. You can't be a billionaire and not, if you don't have anybody working for you to clean your floors and to make sure your car is detailed and to make sure that they're flying your private jet for you, eventually you're going to have to do everything yourself. And then it won't matter if you're a billionaire or if you have no money. It's going to depend on how well can you take care of yourself. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. I feel like we've almost come full circle from what we started talking about, because if you think about it, you're still talking about the difference between being informed and being misinformed. The difference between thinking about here and now and thinking about the future. So, for example, you say that tariffs and trade and all these other things, I would have to say that most of the people making those comments are either extremely misinformed, kind of like they are about subject-verb agreement, or they are very well informed, but they are pandering to groups that they know are misinformed so that they can get their way. Very selfish, very short-sighted. Yeah. So I don't think this is not related. I think all of this is related, quite frankly. I think that, you have people out here now who they will take a soundbite and just run with it. And it almost reminds me of the whisper game. Do you remember the whisper game where you sit in a circle and the one person would say something, that they would say the thing. And by the time it went around the circle, it was something completely different, right? So I feel like our society has kind of become that, only everybody is basically standing on what they think they heard or what they think they know. And that's a hot mess. I mean, if you're being honest.
Yeah. And you see that with social media a lot too. I see this all the time where there will be a post and somebody will basically make a story up. Like you'll see the story, you hear it firsthand from somebody, and then somebody else takes that and they're like, well, they actually said this, that, and the other. And instead of actually investigating for 15, 20 seconds to see if it's true, people are over here writing whole paragraphs about how this person is terrible. This is why they don't listen to Taylor Swift's music anymore. And I'm thinking, if you had looked it up yourself, you will see, it even will say in the description, this is fake. This is fake news. I just like playing with people. And it's really sad because I think part of it is we become so busy as a society, just whether it's with nonsense or with work or whatever, that we don't feel like we have time to investigate this or look into that. And then what happens is it's really just making us worse off. So if I feel like I have to vote for somebody based on what somebody with billions of dollars put into social media, then I'm doing the work for them and making it worse on myself. And that's kind of what we're looking at right now, I think.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I'm not sure that we've become too busy, though. I mean, if you think about it, we are in a society where you can say something and your phone will call someone. You don't have to stand there and push buttons, or even worse, spin something and wait for the rotary to come back around so you can, you know what I mean? We are in a microwave society where you can even get borderline gourmet meals that you can just pop into your microwave and you're eating in a couple of minutes. I don't know that we've gotten too busy. Again, I want to go back to something you said earlier when we were talking about the English language being cool. I remember when being intelligent was cool. And I'm not talking about, people see letters behind my name or whatever. They're like, oh, you think everybody needs to go to school? No, I'm talking about people's grandpas with a fourth grade education that will borrow somebody else's newspaper from the day before and read it cover to cover just so that they had something they could digest and think about and give thought to. So this really has very little to do with education. What it has to do with the fact that as a society, my opinion is, we have made not having information cool. We have made being borderline dumb cool. And now we vehemently defend being stupid. And I don't think that's cool.
Wow. I haven't really thought of it like that, but that's deep. That's pretty deep. And I want to use that to go into a topic that I've been trying to hold back on, but I really want to speak on. I want your opinion on. And it has to do with the whole Hunter Biden thing. And I will admit, I just know based on the news sources that I hear from, I don't trust Fox News as much as I trust Bloomberg Business Week. I don't trust MSNBC as much as I might trust the Washington Post or, just factual information as opposed to somebody else's opinion. So I saw that, Joe Biden pardoned his son. And I just think it's interesting how people want to act like Donald Trump wasn't convicted of all of these felonies and he's getting off scot-free, plus the pending cases that were against him because he's about to be the president. And I said this in another show. I don't hate the player. You got to hate the game. And one thing I feel like so many people are doing, like you said, with being misinformed is they're thinking, oh, well, Donald Trump's, his charges were all made up and they were just going after him because they don't like him. But then you're like, oh, but Hunter Biden did this and he should go to prison. And Joe is basically breaking the law by pardoning his son and this, that, and the other. And I don't want to necessarily say hypocrisy. It is hypocrisy, I think, but I do feel like that does have to do with information. I think misinformation can not only be what source you get your information from, but what you want to say is true or isn't true if everything else is equal. So what do you think on that?
I think that you have touched on a phenomenon called confirmation bias, where you look for information to prove what you already think. I feel like that's definitely part of it. But I also think that, I think people know what they're doing. I don't feel like it's just like the English language being chopped up. I think that people are comfortable. They've settled into their hypocrisy. But I mean, zooming out, what I've watched really for decades is, we have this set of rules for this set of people, and we have this set of rules for this set of people. When the first set of rules stops working for the air quotes first set of people, they just change the rules. If they see the second set of rules are working kind of well for the second group of people, they change those rules too. And it's important to me that people kind of pay attention to that,
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a historian by any means, but, I do know, I've seen even with school boards, they'll say, well, we don't want we don't want you coming in doing X, Y, Z. This group, they can do whatever. We don't want you wearing a Martin Luther King t-shirt. Maybe you can wear that, but we definitely don't want you wearing a Malcolm X t-shirt. But hey, these people can come in with Leonard Skinner and Confederate flag or whatever. Like, I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where everybody's satisfied or everybody's happy. But I sure do think we can get closer to equity in terms of you just being honest and me being honest, and you being able to, take a deep breath and say, hey, this is not my personal cup of tea, but I feel like if I have certain rights, then other groups should have certain rights as well. I watched what I think is a really funny show. Can I say the name of the show?
Oh, yeah.
It's called Abbott Elementary, and it is on ABC on Wednesday evenings. Anyway, they had a holiday theme, and one of the characters was I imagine she was a Muslim girl. I just know she wasn't a Christian girl because her family didn't celebrate Christmas. And a couple other little kids were teasing her like Santa don't like you and he's not going to bring you anything, whatever. So the school administration and instructors turned their Christmas program upside down. They jacked up everything so that this one child could participate. And of course it's a comedy, so it was funny. But the reality is, instead of tearing down your Christmas tree and trying to make up new songs, this is like what actually happened on the show, make up new songs because you don't want to sing Christmas carols or anything. How about this? How about reaching out to this young lady's parents, because I think they're second graders or whatever, and saying, hey, we're having a Christmas pageant. We certainly want your daughter to participate, but we understand y'all don't celebrate Christmas. Would you like to send her with something about fill in the blank?
Yeah.
Right? So that way you still have your Christmas tradition, but you're being inclusive.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to be inclusive. I think a lot of times maybe we have people who think, because I have a different opinion, I'm trying to convert you to my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not. And I know a lot of other people who are not as well. However, I do feel like if I have another way of thinking or doing things and it's within the law, the current law, and it's not hurting anybody, then I should be allowed to do that. I really should.
Yeah.
And because I think, honestly, it's kind of odd that all these people are trying to wave the Christian flag, because I legit have read a lot of the Bible, and I did come up in Christian schools through college, through undergrad, and I got to tell you, this behavior is not Christ-like.
Yeah,
it's really not. So again, the hypocrisy, the changing of rules to fit the, what is it, 1%? Is it 2% now? Is it still 1%? I just think it's ludicrous. And again, people are being short-sighted. That too will come back to bite us.
Yeah. And I think you see that now already with the Latino vote. And I think the Latino population in general, people are so worried about the minorities becoming the majorities. But, they've shown, whether it's blacks, Latinos, Asians, whatever, that they just want to, like you said, they just want to be included. No one's trying to take somebody else's spot. And I think you do see that a lot. Even, just in school, people will try and bullies. Let me put it that way. Somebody will bully somebody and it'll come back to bite them when they could have just, been inclusive, and then everybody could have gotten along. Everybody could have been okay. Everybody could have been good. And you're seeing that now I think you'll see that with the presidency coming up, just how so many people voted for this person. And you can see it on both sides. You saw it with Joe Biden. A lot of people voted for Joe Biden thinking, okay, he's going to get rid of the student loan debt, and I still have all my student loans. And you're going to see it with Trump, I'm going to build a wall. I'm going to make sure that we keep all the jobs in America, and I'm going to bump the tariffs up on all these other countries so that you have to pay less taxes or whatever. And you're going to see that that's really not going to have that much of an effect, if at all, based on what you were sold on. And this is why information is so important. You can look up Project 2025, for example. You can look these things up. And if you take 5 or 10 minutes and read, instead of taking 20 or 30 minutes listening to somebody else just say what's on their mind or say what they want you to believe, you'll be better off and you'll be more informed. And I think, again, it's sad that we have access to more information than we ever had, and we are getting the least amount of information. We're going to what we want to hear in our little echo chamber as opposed to what's factual.
Okay, well, again, I think we're bringing up so many topics that we'll be able to touch on in the future. One thing I guess I want us to close with is, I'm going to reference my hometown once more, Chicago. There's a company, Oscar Mayer, and there was actually a factory that if you were fortunate enough, I'm being facetious, to have to ride public transportation, your train may or may not go right past the Oscar Mayer factory. And I cannot, even with all the words I know, I can't describe what that smell was like. It was bad. I mean, I guess they were slaughtering stuff in there, whatever. My point is, I like hot dogs. I prefer my hot dogs grilled, but I love a good hot dog. I can't even lie. What I can say is, I have never thought about that Oscar Mayer factory. I have never thought about what goes into hot dogs. I've never thought about where it comes from while I'm eating a hot dog. I think you have a lot of people who are willing to just hold their nose and just go for it because they have biases that they cannot work past. I don't think they're looking for facts. Just like I'm not looking at the package of a hot dog trying to figure out what the ingredients are. I don't want to know. I'm hungry, I like hot dogs, and I'm about to eat it. I think we're dealing with a society that kind of feels that way. It's not that they hate a certain group of people, but they are trying to be really protective of what they believe, rightfully or wrongly, are their rights.
Yeah.
And they are determined to do that. And if that means they have to pretend like they don't know what's in their hot dog while they're eating it, that's what they're going to do.
Well, that's a good way to end it. Y'all let us know in the comments down below what you think about what we said. And this will be a show that comes back. So if you liked what you saw, just go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. Otherwise, we'll catch you on the next one. And go ahead and tell them the name of the show again.
The name of the show is I Only Ask Because.
Thank y'all for watching again.